Guess what, friends? It's back to school time. Okay, grab a cup of something, let's sit down, and we'll catch up. Here we go. Hi makers, Christine here. Welcome to another episode of Quilting on Caffeine. This one's going to be a little more casual, so kind of like a coffee chat. And we're just going to kind of sit and chat and catch up, and we'll see where it takes us. I don't actually have a plan or an outline. I'm just rolling with it. Okay, it is the beginning of September, and the kids are back in school, which for me feels amazing. For others, not so great. But I feel a sense of freedom I haven't felt since about, June 15th of this year. So I am finally getting back in my studio after a very hot and humid August where it was miserable to be in here. There's teasing temperatures like fall, maybe, kind of. I don't know. So here we are. Thanks for joining me. Today we are going to catch up on some discoveries that I've made in my studio while trying to dig out of the pile of stuff I have, and a renewed focus. So where I left off is not where I am now, so we're going to just glaze right over that. August was hot and humid. I was barely out here at all. I had a lot of kids stuff going on that popped up kind of unexpectedly. So my crafting on the August front was much more in the needlepoint vein. I will try to pop in with some finished pieces soon. They are all kind of at a disarray right now. But today's focus is on my quilting whips. So if you've been watching for a while, or even just the past few episodes, you might have heard me mention that I broke my wrist. Broke my wrist, had it cast for about a few weeks. We had to set it multiple times. It wasn't taking. Finally ended up having surgery. Had it in a splint and then had to work back to full use of my arm after that. I am through physical therapy at this point. I have seen the doctor. She has given me full clearance to use my wrist as any crafter might need to. One of the things that she did cut out completely was using a rotary cutter. She has since told me that I can use it occasionally. Well, the bone is fully healed, the plate is in place, and my mobility is about 88% back. That cutting, whatever momentum is the one thing that's still really bothering me. I have worked at my knitting to be back to almost where it was in terms of how long I can knit for. A lot of that is also dictated by how tired my eyes get. So it's been a mixed bag. But she gave me clearance the 19th of October. Don't I wish? The 19th of August to go back to crafting as I would prior to all of this. And I have not crocheted anything, I don't think. And I've done a bit of knitting. I've done a lot of frogging where you rip out what you've knit because it's been so long since I last touched it that I don't even remember where I was going with it, what round I was on, what I was doing. That's the thing about accidents. They're unexpected. So when I put it down last, I never thought I wouldn't remember where I was. The one knitting project I have picked back up, and it's the only knitting project that we're going to talk about today, not ever, but today, is this sweater. The sweater is a pattern on Ravelry. It's the Johanna sweater. It is a cardigan. I started it a couple years ago. And when I thought I was going to partake in a knit along, and then just decided that I did not have the time, the bandwidth, or the focus for a knit along. But I picked this because of the cute little striped pattern. In the knit along, before I realized it wasn't happening, I got through here. And I have since picked up, and I did rip this section here, the pink and purple section, back out. And I have put that back on and put on the third section. After this section, it goes to a stripe that wraps around the whole body. These are obviously going to be vertical stripes. Well, maybe not obviously. These will be vertical stripes. The rest of the body is knit in horizontal stripes. So more on that to come, but it does feel good to be knitting with some bigger size needles. I like big needles, I cannot lie. This gives me, like, this is very soothing to me. It is a cardigan with a steek, which was part of the, like, challenge of this knit along. So you can see the steek area is right here. I've never done a steek. I've never knit a cardigan. We'll see how this goes. So that is the very brief knitting update. I do hope to cast on some mittens in the future weeks because I think that would make some cute gifts. I am still trying to work down on my Christmas list and not be a last minute Nelly, although, well, I am who I am, and I'm a procrastinator actually. Okay, so moving on to sewing. When I first broke my wrist and I was in a cast, I was cast up to my fingertips, down and around my elbow. So I could not actually, there was no pincher. So I started sewing together jelly rolls because I had jelly rolls. So last month I was like, I'm going to start the Christmas crafting. It's going to be Christmas in August. I'm going to get all these things done. And what I realized was that I actually really needed to, like, clear some of the works in progresses off of the many spaces here. One of the things that I did finish piecing together, and I mentioned this last time, was the Barnstar sampler. I have it down to the 1/3 top is pieced, the bottom 2/3 is pieced, and there's something off in my measurements. There's something off. And I've now sewn it together twice, the top third to the bottom 2/3, and it's off about 3/8 of an inch. My seams are not lining up. So, in a fit of rage, I threw it off to the side. I said, forget this. But I am going to actually try. It was hot and sweaty in here too, so it was like not a good day to be having a like constant conversation with my seam ripper. I am going to start at the center, get those seams lined up, see if I can kind of eke it out. If I still can't eke it out, I'm going to, I might actually need to bring myself and put like something in between those blocks that doesn't need to match either seams. I haven't quite figured out what that is, and if it's necessary. I think that after 3 times of sewing and ripping out a seam, I decided, especially when I had convinced myself the 3rd time was going to be the charm, I decided, like, let's put this aside, okay? So it's aside. I'll try one more time to get those seams to match as I'm sewing from the center out. I pinned like nobody's business last time, and it still was not matching up. So it's partially because I used linen in there, I'm sure. And partially because I changed up some of those smaller block patterns to be just flying geese. And partially because the measurements, since it was such a long-term project, I don't trust myself in that even though I cut everything with the same ruler, my seam allowances might have wiggled a little bit. There's a difference between a scant 1/4 inch seam and a 1/4 inch seam, and I am the biggest offender of that. And it could just be that if one of my blocks is off in this thing, then forget it. So I'm going to, it's also like the top third, which is like towards the beginning of the quilt along process, I think. So things can change over 9 months. I'll try one more time. If it doesn't work, I'm probably going to put some sort of band in between those two, or I'll flip it. I'll do something, but that's still a work in progress. And that's a big work in progress, so that's something that needs to get done and like finished. But in the meantime, back to the jelly rolls. When I was up to here on a cast, I started just sewing jelly rolls together. It was the one thing I could think of that gave me that creative fix. The sound of the sewing machine fixes my anxiety like nothing else. And I was very anxious when I had a broken wrist, let me tell you. And I was also in a lot of pain when I had a broken wrist. So it's the one thing that I could really do that was pain-free, and kind of just like get that like repetitive motion going. So I started sewing jelly rolls together. One of the jelly rolls I started sewing was I cracked open the Slow Stroll jelly roll. I think it's Slow Stroll. It's a Fancy That Design House jelly roll. And I just started sewing strips together of 5. And I was utilizing the tea time pattern, like let's have a cup of tea time pattern. It is a YouTube video, so I will put that in the show notes down below. But it just has you sew together. It's about sewing them together and cutting them up into blocks. So when all this was said and done, I had a bunch of 5 set jelly roll strips. You can see them all here. That need to be cut into squares. And it's all about, they became tubes. That's right. They became tubes. So jelly strip roll tubes. Definitely watch the video that they posted and don't go by me. And that's about cutting. It's all about the cutting. It comes down to the magic of the cutting. So now all I need to do is lay that out on my design wall that's behind you guys and start making them into 4 blocks and then piecing it together. And it should kind of have like a cool diagonal seam strip quilt feel at the end. But I was like, I love Fancy That Design House. It's no secret. So it was a nice way to get some progress made on a quilt that I probably wouldn't have made otherwise. So I picked that up. I cut these up. I started laying out some of them, decided that I wasn't loving the contrast of the fabrics. I was starting to have too many darks in one place, too many lights in another place, and I was creating a weird pooling effect. So I'll probably start that next week with our first full week of school. I also grabbed this pattern. I picked this up no, that's a lie. I picked this up during my splint situation, during my cast. Arm in a cast, can't cut anything. Because I needed some retail therapy. I needed some fabric therapy. I just was not, I don't know. I was daydreaming, I guess. I picked up 2 charm packs of, let's make sure we get this right, Imaginary Flowers by Gingerbread. I love Gingerbread lines, usually. The Imaginary Flowers is very fun, whimsical, retro. And once I got the clearance to start cutting things, I started cutting charms in quarters and sewing them into 9-patch blocks. One of the nice things about this is that the cream fabric comes from my stash, and I also plan to use some stash fabrics for those, what are the blue bands here. Now, this pattern, which I don't actually think I actually said, La Muse by Basic Gray. This is not my style. But there is something drawing me to using fabric like this in this pattern. So I'm using a cream background. I'm using dark gray for the bands. And I picked up some complementary fabric that I've already hidden away for the flying geese. Um, I've started on the flying geese. I've created all of the 9 patches that we need. I've created about, well, I could do the math. I've created half of one of the 4 flying geese. So that's an eighth of all the flying geese needed. There's a lot of flying geese in this quilt. I love flying geese, so to me it's like winning. But so my goal is to get to like 50% of the flying geese created this week so that I can cut over the weekend for the next 2 colorways, which is the other 50%. And then it's just about putting it together. I've been told it goes together really quick once you have all the pieces. I really, really hope that's the case because I don't need another whip. I just don't. I don't need another whip. But that's a really fun one. I've been using some blenders for the squares on the inside. My flying geese are also kind of blendery. They pick up on the color palette, but they're not. 2 of them are the same line. 2 of them are just blenders to kind of incorporate it. And then I already have the backing for this, which is this and this. Look at those. It will be a piece backing, but this was one of those like finish the bolt and get like finish the discount bolts, so it's already marked down, and get like 30% off of the sale price. That's how I like to buy backings, people. I am going to string through some, like where the 2 pieces meet, I am going to actually put in some of the front fabrics because I do have leftover charms and the blender. So it'll be kind of like a band, and I think that'll be fun. I do love a good pieced back. Okay, so that was not a jelly roll project. That was a pre-cut project, but it falls in my head as a jelly roll project, which makes no sense. I understand, but because I cut tons of 2.5 strips, or I made a bunch of 2.5-inch squares. So same size pieces, it just, I know sometimes I make no sense. But back to an actual jelly roll, I picked up this pattern during when everybody was having sales, because I do not have, if you watch my Vlogmas, you know that I have multiple Christmas trees, and not every Christmas tree actually has a Christmas tree skirt. In fact, one has one of those metal baskets, like those metal tree skirts, and then the rest of them just use blankets. Sorry, I have to change that. So, and my trees are not red and green. So a lot of the Christmas fabrics, or like the Christmas, like the pre-made Christmas tree skirts, don't actually work for my tree themes. So there was this, and I don't know why. People are going to say it's because there was a bird on it. I don't love birds. There's this jelly roll that just kept calling out to be made into this Christmas tree skirt, the Holly Jolly tree skirt. And I was sewing, that's all I was doing. So I sewed all the strips for this. Found it again in a not so clean pile in my studio. Last month, finished sewing all 3 strip sets together. I sewn all 3 strip sets together. Put it aside, grab the ruler that I'm going to need to cut it, and then it's just about cutting them down into, is there a way I can show you? So without sharing proprietary information, it's about cutting the strip sets, alternating them. Obviously, this is for a medium-sized tree skirt. That's how many jelly roll strips I threw together. A medium should work on the size tree I have. I do love that on this back, on the side, it tells you, does it tell you? or does it just get blurry? It tells you that for tree heights of 7 to 7.5 feet, you want to make a medium-sized skirt. For tree heights of 9 feet up, you'll make a large, and for tree heights of 4.5 to 6.5 feet, you'll make a small. Now, I'm pretty sure my tree is 7.5 feet. I will be very disappointed if it's not, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So I'm going to, my plan is I'm going to cut this down once I clear the cutting table off. It is buried at the moment. Cut these down, sew them together as leader enders, very big leader enders, but sew them together while I'm starting to piece some of these other blocks together. And then I will have that, I'm just going to use, I'm sure I have backing in that color vein that I can throw it. I probably have scrap fabric that I can piece together even if I need to. Use that as the backing and get it quilted when it's still one piece. And I have small remnants of, do you also have a ton of remnants? I'm actually asking that question. I have batting remnants, bins of batting remnants. I need to start franken-batting. I just need to. I can't. This is getting, I either need to start franken-batting or I need to start embracing the quilted table runner. One or the other, because it's driving me crazy. I know there's tape or something that you can use. Maybe I'll do that. I know you can zigzag them together if you need to. That feels weird, but something has to happen. It's out of control. Oh, and I just see the third strip set for the tree skirt over there. But I think this will be a fun tree skirt. It will fit my like vibe in one of the rooms for sure. And if I love it, I can just, I mean, I have not indulged in a Christmas print jelly roll yet, but that I remember. So that was another two of those projects, with the exception of the Lemieux charm packs that I bought, the gingerbread charm packs that I bought for Lemieux. Two of those jelly rolls were here. Even with the Lemieux, I was able to use down some of my stash, which was the goal heading into this year. That quickly pivoted once I realized this year wasn't going to be what I thought it was. The last time I was here, I talked about doing the upscale plaid quilt. I have not yet cut into that because I have not yet cleaned off my cutting table. So the next video, somebody suggested doing a like sped up clean of the studio. I'm deciding how horrifying that will be. I just have projects everywhere. And for months, I wasn't in here really all that often because I wasn't like utilizing the space. But that is what I'm up to. I can tell you what's on my list, but then I'm kind of holding myself responsible. And I'm not sure I want to do that. But yeah, so it's about cleaning up the space a little bit. Getting things on the cutting mat that need to be trimmed down. And taking it from there. I will be working on Christmas quilts this month. Promise. Pinky promise. And some other stuff. Okay, that pretty much sums it up for the sewing area. Man, I always have dreams of getting so much more done, but space-time continuum must be adhered to. So other than that, let's talk about what's been going on. I went back to school. I'm currently going for my real estate license in the state of Rhode Island. That kind of came up. I I was a little taken back. People that I tell it to were not taken back. I've always loved following real estate. I've always loved open houses. I love staging a room like nobody's business. I studied photography. So I'm always looking at like how people are photographing their spaces, even if it is just to sell a house. And when I broke my wrist and I realized like, oh, this is really going to put a cramp on, like, I couldn't use a mouse. I couldn't, like, typing wasn't happening. I was like, oh my goodness, all my eggs are like in the design basket and I can't design right now. Or quilt or knit or crochet. Like, I could not do anything. I could barely needlepoint. And it was slow going. But I could like pursue other, like, I was daydreaming. And so I went back for my real estate license. I'm in the middle of classes, in the middle of training. It's 45 hours of classes and a test and a law addendum, which is more pages than I really want to count at the moment. But I'll test for both of those in mid-October. Hopefully that will free up some time because I'm using my kids are at school time to do that. But it's been good. It's been interesting. If nothing else, it's going to make that hobby a lot more intriguing. And I'm trying to get back in. So I'm doing something moving forward, and I'm trying to get back on freezer meal prep because, as some of you might already know, I'm not speaking new knowledge. This is the busiest time of year. And keeping the food budget under control right now is hard. It's hard. I love cooking when people appreciate it or if it's for a special event. I do not love providing people 3 meals a day that they could take or leave or complain about. It's usually the latter. So I have been spending a lot of like my awake mind functioning time trying to figure out, and maybe it shouldn't be this difficult, but trying to figure out how to make the money go farther. I'm struggling with my words. Make the money go farther, cut down on the time it takes me, and know that there's always something to be fed to people. So I have come up with I've decided that 15 meals is the sweet spot, right? So for not just to feed my family, for freezer meal prep. So I'm trying to like bring them together in 15 meal chunks, quickly. So it's got to be quick, it's got to be easy, and it's got to be like family friendly freezer meals. Like, I would eat chicken chili until the cows came home. My kids would not. So just kind of finessing it, but we also don't want to eat the same thing every day. So a lot of my time has been about freezer meal, just menu prep, not even making the actual meals. So after I finish recording here today, that's actually the plan for the rest of the day, is to do the big grocery shop, have my mini heart attack about what the checkout says, and then come home and make 15 meals for dinners for the next 3 weeks. That will feel amazing. That gives me 2 days. My kids will eat the same thing every day for breakfast. As long as I give them like a small variety of options, that's smooth sailing. And then I've got 3 weeks where I've only got to figure out meals for 2 days or 2 nights. So that feels like a lot better. And the lunch thing I haven't quite figured out yet. It's still too early in the school year to figure out who's buying lunch, who's bringing lunch. My husband and I definitely need to figure out like how our lunches are going to roll, especially just given how expensive the grocery store is right now. It's not going to be a takeout 5 days a week situation. But that's not a sewing thing, but that has been a very big chunk of my life. So those 2 other things, both class and planning, have taken up a lot of time from my happy place, from the creative space. And it's all good and it's all interesting. And I do thrive on like kind of figuring out how food can slot together. I'm depending a lot on a friend who knows which stores got chicken on sale, which one has beef on sale, and making the most of, like, if I'm in that area, grabbing proteins when I can for sale prices. But like any new potential habit, it takes time, it takes commitment every day. And I'm assuming it will become easier as I can just go through these meal plans and just cycle through them. But I have my list, my big old shopping list here. Oh, you don't think that's big? That's why. This is my shopping list. 2 seconds. So I'm going to go eat something so that I don't make any poor choices in the store. But that pretty much sums up what we're doing, in addition to, you know, shuffling kids here, there, and everywhere. I think that's the only other thing I'm working on, is getting my kids where they need to be when they need to be there. And with the way traffic has been, trying to find some good books. So before I sign off, here are my questions to you, dear viewer. 1, do you franken-batting? And if so, how? 2, do you have any good audiobooks to listen to? It does need to be family friendly, because I listen to it with a kid and without a kid. So family friendly audiobooks that are engaging enough to not put me to sleep. So I've ruled out like any business books or any like nonfiction books. I'm not engaged enough. But I'm having trouble finding that. I did re-listen to Harry Potter, the whole series, over the summer. I love Harry Potter. My kids do not. And on that note, I have a kid texting me. So those are my 2 questions, batting and books. I have a kid texting me, so I'm going to end this video and get it posted as soon as I can. I think he's probably waiting for me to pick him up right now. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll be back very soon with some needlepoint projects. And if all goes according to plan, more progress on that sweater. Talk to you soon. Bye.